All right. Welcome back to another exciting episode of the HHC podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Moreno, and I'm here with my brother Juan. Juan, how you been, man?
I've been all right. It's just been another week, another grind. Not much. Some freaking Spurs basketball, some really ugly games, and had a good game last night. Finally, something to not feel so down about. You know. But other than that, been kind of chilling, just working, school, sleeping. You know the vibes.
Yes, I do. I've been, uh, I've been here and there doing some events for a club that I'm in. I'm part of like our PMR stuff, so I work on our social media. Um, and that's kind of been keeping me active. But anytime that I'm not doing that, I'm here at the house just sleeping around. So,
Yep.
um, but we do come to you guys every Sunday at the 10 a.m.s. This time we were able to get on at the right 10 a.m. slot. But we try to get to y'all as soon as we can live at the 10 a.m.s on all three platforms of Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Um, all three of those platforms you can be able to watch us live whenever we're on. And if you can't, the VODs will be on all three of those platforms shortly thereafter. Make sure that you do follow us on Twitter at Heroes Half Court, where we do talk about the Spurs on the new daily. We love having like the engagement with the Spurs community, with the Spurs Twitterverse. So don't be afraid to reach out and talk to us. With that being said, we have a good little bit to talk about. Earlier this week we had some trade rumors pop up, some reports about like what the Spurs would want if we're going to trade some of our pieces. Miles Turner got his contract extension, and at first it looked like it was a huge contract extension, but we can get a little bit deeper into like what the numbers really look like and what that means for a guy like Jakob. And then the thing that we're gonna start off today with is our main man Jeremy Sochan. He just put up a 30-point near triple double, but 30 points, 8 rebounds, and what was it, 5 assists if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, 5 assists.
And that's something big. That's really something that a lot of people on Twitter especially have been talking a lot of trash about Jeremy through the year, and that's just because his numbers don't necessarily shine on a box score. You're just seeing like 6, 6, and 6 from him through a nightly basis. Sorry, we'll change the numbers up with 7, 7, and 7 on a nightly basis, and it's something like that where you like people will talk trash just because his numbers aren't the Paulo numbers or anything where he's putting up 20 on a nightly basis. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. What do you think, Juan?
I mean, obviously he looked very raw coming out of college. A lot of his game was offensively was like, for some people, yeah, sure, it left a lot to be desired. But if you just looked at his game and the model type of player he was a defensive first prospect, and I felt like anything he gave you offensively was a bonus. It was like this year was going to be like, if he gave you 12, 14 points one night, you'd take that because he's not ever really looking for his shot. And that's how I felt to start the year. But as the year's gone on, each month, you could just see the progress. You could see the development taking place. And I like jokingly said right at the end of the podcast, it was a half joke because I really was expecting Jeremy to go for 20 points. I made a comment. I said, book it. Jeremy Sochan's going for 20 at least, at some point this week. Because he had been so aggressive recently. He was like averaging like 16 points a game over the last 5 games he'd played. And I was just confident in his ability. He just understands like it is like on him right now to add something offensively. And he started out, I think, what was it, the Portland game? That
Yeah.
was the first game last week. He started out like on fire. He was coming out swinging and everything like that. And I'm not even sure what happened. He just slowed down in the second half, and I was like, oh, okay, of course. I think he finished with 18 points in that game, and I was like, all right, he's right there. Then the same thing against the Lakers. Starts out with the three ball again, and I love when he starts the game off with the three ball because you could just see the rest of the game. He just has confidence. He just wants to prove what he can do. And then he left the Laker game with like an injury mid game, and I was just like, oh my gosh, there goes my prediction. There goes all my fun watching Jeremy. He's going to be out for the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks with a sore quad or whatever they said his injury was. And then he missed one game. He missed the Clippers game the next night, and then he played last night against Phoenix. And I mean, what more can you ask for? He's confident. He's taking the shots. To me, his shot never looked broken. Like it looks flat sometimes. But his form never looked broken. But I never really dive deep into like that left hand being on the ball the way his free throws look, you know what I mean? But his 3-point shots always looked fine, and I always liked his pull-up mid-range shots. He just has to obviously work on it more, and it's going to look more comfortable. And yesterday was all that. It was everything coming together. Jeremy he's so exciting. His energy is infectious, the same as energy is. It may not be as loud or, you know, what, a certain swagger to the way he plays, and it like, I really love it. I need to get the jersey. I wanted a jersey for Christmas. Jake told my family that I didn't want a jersey for Christmas for some reason. I wanted a Jeremy Sochan jersey so bad, but it looks like I'm gonna have to buy it myself. But just like, I don't know, everything Jeremy's done, like you just look at it month to month, it's been there. Like the progress is there, the development is there. And obviously, all of that kind of coincides with his one-handed free throw change. As soon as he went to that, it changed everything for him. And, you know, props to him. Everybody, you know, like the people who do love Jeremy, they post that on Twitter. Like, you know, this is a young kid who's willing to go out there and do that. I don't even know if he thinks like that. Like, it is that brave of a thing to do for him, because it's just a thing to get better. Like, I don't think of it as like oh, he's so brave. Like, I just think he's doing something to get better, and he believes and he trusted in the coaching staff to get better. So I think Jeremy's progress has been evident all year, and I'm excited to see if it sticks. Like, this is the thing, it has to be consistent. Like, he has to come out aggressive. I don't need him to try to go for 30 every night and take 25 shots like he did last night. Some of those shots were heat checks as well, but that's fine, you know, like if he's in the moment. But like, if he scores 18 next game, like, to me, that's still a win. He doesn't have to go 20 plus 30 to make it be like, see, told you so. I think like that aggressiveness is more than enough. It's a key factor in his development.
No, you're 100% on the dot right there, man. It's one of those things where I all year I've been happy about how like unafraid he is of the moment. Like, this man is just like, anytime that the ball is in his hands, he will do, like, he'll make what he thinks is the right play, and it's with confidence. It's not man, I really hope I did the right thing. No, because, you know, he comes in with that confidence, and it just opens up the whole floor, because, you know, he's running down the floor and getting put back dunks and getting, you know, doing all this stuff that like makes people have to pay attention to him. And then that just leads to, like, you know, you didn't necessarily say it, but he is like somewhat of a like solid playmaking system that he's got going on, you know. And he came out of college being a decent playmaker, and right now, like, he shows like flashes of, like, you know, just solid things on the floor that you know, to me it always felt like it was pretty Boris Diaw-esque, where he just like knows where everybody on the court is and knows where to put the ball. You know, there's a one play where he like gets it at the top of the key and passes it like a nice bounce pass right to Malachi, going under the rim like that, you know. And it's stuff like that where you know, I love seeing that kind of stuff. I'll always love seeing that type of player, you know. And then again, like, you know, we haven't really been able to like get a lot of rebounds this year, but when you see one Jeremy put back dunk a game, It was
Yeah,
just like, man, like this is amazing. Like I
yeah,
love having a guy who can just fly through the air like this. It's
I know,
awesome.
and it still catches me off guard. Like I've seen it so many times, and it still catches me off guard when he just is like floating in the air.
Exactly. You're just like, whoa, where'd you come from, dude? Like,
Yeah.
weren't you just on the 3-point line when the ball like left his hand? Like, what the heck, man? And
Mhm.
it's wonderful. It's always his progress this year has been wonderful to see, just because like, yeah, I mean he's not afraid of making those moves, and then he's not afraid to change. He's not afraid to work with whatever we have on the floor. I was really happy from this game, and just watching like his shot attempts and stuff like that, and watching what fell and stuff. It was spacing. He loves, or I know like when he usually is getting these points, it's around the rim. You're not necessarily seeing him take these pull-up jumpers or taking a shot just off the freaking top of the key type of thing.
Yeah.
But this game had him doing that, and I was happy. I was super happy to see something like that, because it doesn't have to be, he doesn't have to be the most efficient player in the world, but if he can knock that stuff down, and start getting people to need to face up on him just in this first year alone, because we didn't even think that was going to be a thing this year. If he
Yep.
could do that just this year alone, then there's no telling how much better he's going to get through the summer, and how much more we're going to be able to utilize Jeremy on this team. And just thinking about like what he can add, and then what Devin can do once he comes back, like what Keldon's been able to do just because Jeremy was going off yesterday. It's like, hey, we got some solid pieces that we're building up right now. We have people that'll be able to complement off each other really well. And Jeremy is just being able to like fit himself as another cog in the wheel. Another like piece to the puzzle type of thing. So
Yeah.
it's been really really interesting to see his progress. And I think I talked a lot about like how Malachi has been progressing, um and I feel like I'm mainly talking about him just because his stuff shows out, but you always have to think about what Jeremy's been adding to his game every single day. So it's been it's been really nice to see what he can do, and it'll be nice to see where we can start to have expectations, just like you
Yeah.
were saying, where he doesn't have to go for 30 every game, but all right, we saw a whole week where he put 14, 16, or no, 14, 18, and 30, so let's see him stay in double digits all week for this next week.
Yeah, because at some point, if he continues this trend, like that is going to be expected. Like, we can't have those 4-point nights from Jeremy Sohan. Obviously, I mean, he was a little freshman coming out of college, right? So like, he's young, he's a baby, he's 19. So it's like it took him a little bit to get to this point, but like obviously his confidence, he obviously looks like a player that is built on his confidence. If he's confident in this moment in the game, he's going to be effective. Like it like increases his game. But yeah, like you said, right now I don't like, we don't need him going for 30, but like now it's like double digits. You're starting, you're playing 30 minutes a night. Double digits is kind of like the baseline now. Like we've already seen what you can do, Jeremy. Keep it up. I know I forgot to bring up the playmaking too. You brought up the playmaking, but if he can average 3 or 4 assists a night, he's not even a point guard. And like you said, the dimes, he has the ball in his hands a lot. So like, yeah, he probably is the point guard. Like, is LeBron a point guard? Well, he has the ball in his hands every play. So yes, like I think this is kind of the same philosophy for like Jeremy, because if he's got the ball in his hands and he's like, he was on fire, that like Keldon was deferring to Jeremy to start the play, because you trusted Jeremy to either get his shot because he was hooping last night, or to find the right guy. Like you said, he like does a little kind of half spin, finds Malachi baseline. That was a sweet play, and it's just like the vision is there. It's been there all year. He's always had the playmaking vision. It's just a little late here, or maybe like he just, I don't know. It's right, the rookie problems. But you could see like he's a playmaking big. I mean, that, like you said, the Boris Diaw prototype, I guess like everybody likes saying the Draymond too. It's like he can be a playmaker. Um, I saw like uh, he's averaging, I think, over like the last 5 or 6 games, because what he had like 10 rebounds last night, right?
No, he had 8.
8 rebounds, and then so the last 5 games before that were 7 rebounds, 6 rebounds, 6 rebounds, 4 rebounds, 8 rebounds. Like if he's around that 8 rebounds a game, I'm fine with that. I guess you have like a game, team philosophy of rebounding anyway, so you're not gonna get those crazy numbers like some teams do. Um, but like, yeah, if he can average around 8 rebounds a game, 4 assists, 14, 15, 16 points a game as a rookie, I mean, that's a complete game from a rookie 19-year-old kid. And it is kind of frustrating how much people were like hating on Jeremy. I know he's like the highest drafted, player since Tim Duncan. And people weren't happy with his production. But I always said from the first week of the season, I was like, you can see the right plays. Like he's making the right plays when he was doing like those running hooks and they would bounce off the backboard and hit like, go into the stands. It was like, well, at least he has the right play in mind. Like that's what you're supposed to do. Or he would cut to the basket at the right time and they would throw it to him and he would just have those brick hands and just like it'd be a turnover and it's like, well, at least he made the right cut. And to me, that was confidence that his basketball IQ was high enough. He just needed to get better. And
Yeah.
for it to happen so fast, quickly across the season, and like you're starting, like the cuts, being made. He had the cut last night against Phoenix where he missed a three, just kind of kept running, kept moving. Zach Collins gets off at 2 rebounds, finds him, and he has a big jam. Like nobody could block it. And it's just like his basketball IQ is good, well, more than good enough. It's up there. And now you're just starting to see everything fall in place, and that's the best part for me. I had another thing I was gonna say. I had like a couple of stats. I think he's like by far the youngest player to score 30 points for the franchise. Spurs history, he's the youngest player to score 30 points. I know I've always said, like, when's the last time we've had like a rookie score like 20 points a game, like 20 points in a game, and Malachi did it. And then there was the stat, I got it right here, where it's like rookies with 25 plus points in a game. And the last one was last year, Jock Landale. But Bill Land like pointed out it was Jock Landale's 25, 26 years old already, professional basketball in Australia.
That guy was an MVP over in Australia.
Yeah, so like Jock Landale, and then before that was Bryn Forbes in 2017. Bryn, he's that guy. There was never a doubt. That guy could score. I'm pretty sure Bryn was undrafted, right? If he wasn't,
yeah, Bryn was undrafted.
So that's like a kind of a theme on this little list of rookies to score 25 or more for the Spurs. Since after Tim Duncan's year, right? And then Gary Neal in 2011. So another like undrafted, just bona fide shooter. And then in 2010, it was DeJuan Blair. So a second round pick who was a hooper for us. And then Beno Udre. I forgot how to say his last name. Obviously, we're a little young for that. That was in 2005. So like that's a little list. I always point out, like, when's the last time we had guys, be this effective right away? There it is. Like
when you say that list, like DeJuan Blair's second round pick, it's like, and as a rookie, that's pretty good to you like to hear something like that. But like those undrafted guys and even Jock, they weren't 20 years old when they were scoring,
exactly,
like that.
Yeah.
It was Bryn was an undrafted G League guy for us that we knew who Bryn was for probably like a year before or whatever, just because he was in the G League, And it was like, oh, okay. So he comes out and he scores and we're like, oh, this is a guy that's probably been here for the last like 2-3 years with us. And, like
you said, like they're like 22 years old, 23, and they're even 3 or 4 years in college developed, like they come into the league ready to score and shoot. I remember DeJuan Blair being a hooper for us, and obviously my name is Juan, so I used to get like really excited for DeJuan Blair's success. Yeah, for for stuff like that. And then he kicked Thiago Splitter in the head, and I never forgave him for that. So, um, but yeah, the whole freaking like rookie success, like I used to say that about like Lonnie and even like Devin, Keldon. Like if they were that guy, they would go into games and do that. And I don't think that Lonnie 30-point comeback against Houston was his rookie year. That was, I think,
That
the
was
next.
his second year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So like,
Uh, 2018, it might have been his rookie year
right. So maybe it was his rookie year, and maybe well, because no, because then it would have been on the list of
because it
rookies
would
to
have been on the
start.
list. So it
Yeah.
definitely would have been his second year.
So like I've always kind of said like come out and do it, and obviously they didn't have the opportunity that the rookies have now, like playing 20 minutes a night, like Malachi, Blake getting minutes. You know what I mean? They had guys in front of them to do that, but like I don't know, like Jeremy is the highest drafted rookie we've had since Tim Duncan, and it shows. He's the most talented rookie by far that we've had in a long time. A lot of potential in his game. Um, I think it's going to be kind of like Keldon Johnson. As far as his 3-point success, I don't know if that's sustainable because once he starts hitting it at a high clip, he's not the type of guy to hit it like with a guy like draped all over him right now. And he's not the type of guy to take somebody off the dribble, step back three, or off the dribble, pull up three. And that's okay. That's not his game. But once people start running him off the 3-point line, I don't know if he's going to ever be able to have the 3-point in his bag this year, if he continues this success. Because, like, you look at Keldon Johnson now, like, you're like, why is he forcing so many threes? Well, those are the same threes he's taken. It's just they used to leave him wide open because they didn't think he could knock him down. And now they respect his 3-point ability. They close out. He still takes the three, and he finishes a night 2 for 8 on three. Like, I kind of envision that for Jeremy the rest of the year. Like, I think he's shooting like 50% from three for like over the last like 5 or 6 games. Like at some point, the team's gonna close out on that, and he's not gonna be able to get those shots off. And so I don't think he's got the pull up three like in his game, like consistently. He might hit one or two like a week, and you're like, there it is. But I don't know. That's just something to look forward to. Maybe that, like you brought it up, like that'll open up his game. If a guy closes that hard on him, he can attack the basket, and you trust his playmaking ability enough to throw an hoop to Yak or find a cutter or to do something, or maybe hit the pull up mid range, like find something out. So, but I'm excited for Jeremy. I have been. Um, I really love his defense. We haven't even really talked about his defense.
Dude,
Um,
we've been like the Spurs threw that man out in the fire from day one.
yeah,
From day one, he's been guarding best matchup on the floor, and it's like it it's been exciting to see in a year like this where you're not focused on seeing if we can lock down Steph Curry to like win a game. You're just seeing, all right, let's just see how good Jeremy is going to be against this guy. And sorry, I just wanted to bring this little thing up of just like we're making Jeremy do a lot his rookie year. We're making him do a lot as you are pretty much the best defender on the floor. You're gonna have to do this. You are the secondary playmaker on the floor. You're gonna have to do this. Now you're starting to hit your shots and you're starting to become a second option because Devin's out. We're gonna have to need you to start doing this. We're making him do a lot of stuff this year, and he's able to. He's been able to do what he can on all three sets of what we're asking him to do, right? But to me, it's going to be the exact same way that we've kind of like talked about Keldon in the last little bit of just like, well, right now Keldon's having to do too much, and that's why some people might think that his play is regressed. That's why I said that and I thought about it for a little bit, but you start to like think back about it, and man, if we get somebody that can just complement their game that much more, Keldon's going to look that much better. Jeremy's going to look that much better when he doesn't have to do everything that we're asking him to do on the floor on every single night.
yeah,
When it comes to a part where it's like, oh, well, this is just a compliment to the game that every now and then you're going to see it, but it doesn't have to be the things that we're making him do every single night. So that's something that I think is going to really start to push his progress forward even more when we start to see more people be able to take up like playmaking handles and things like that like make Jeremy's job easier. and we're talking about this man making his job easier as a rookie, you know. So
Yeah.
it's like it's exciting to see what's gonna happen for him.
Yeah, in my mind, I see both Jeremy and Keldon as like compliments, right? Like you said, to the guy, to a star, to a Wemby or a Scoot Henderson, you know. But at the same time, like I am kind of worried, like Jeremy's developing all these tendencies and his game right now as the primary ball handler, or like developing that right to be like you have to be effective with the ball in your hands. Like, well, when you get a Scoot or you get like a Wemby, like, well, those guys are going to need the ball in their hands, and like he's going to have to find a way to be effective, which is like like this right here, this comment that Josh just said in the comments. That's what I was about to say. Is like he's just got to be able to knock down the three, like on the wing, you know what I mean, or in the corner. Outside of that, and like everything will flow off of that. But I don't know. I like yeah, if you get a Wemby, you probably want the ball in his hands. But even then, like Jeremy being like a de facto point guard on the unit is not a bad thing. I don't know. I don't know how good those Scoot and Wemby's, even if we don't even get those guys, like the other type of players. So maybe it is good that Jeremy keeps developing this skills to have the ball in his hands. Because if you think about it, like Devin Vassell needs the ball in his hands to be a scorer, to be effective. Keldon Johnson needs to score and be effective. Well, the way Keldon ended the game last night, running in transition, like that to me was always his,
Bread and
like,
butter.
yeah, like exactly like the true like beauty to his game, the big body, like he's like in transition and flowing, but we just haven't been a good defensive team to kind of get out in transition and everything like that. But like Keldon in a half court set, Devin in a half court set, Jeremy in a half court set. Who's going to have the ball in the hand? You know what I mean? The whole time. Who's cutting to the basket? Who's doing all the little dirty work? Well, that's Jeremy. And then if you add a top 5 pick next year, now you got Devin, Keldon, and top 5 pick. Who's going to have the ball in their hand? And if you have a point guard, if you upgrade from Trey, do they need the ball in their hands? Like, just like something to think about, I guess.
Yeah. No, you always like it's why it's like one of those things where you have to like just focus on what's in front of you, you know, and you don't get to be like, well, let's go ahead and start building as if we're gonna have freaking Victor Wembanyama on our team next year, you know,
Yeah, right.
because there's no guarantees. There's no guarantees at all. And that's why we're making our moves that we're making, you know. One thing that I do want to point out, just on a personal thing that I noticed earlier this week, and that was we've kind of already talked about how, like, how young these guys are, these rooks are. It's baffling for me personally that, like, next year I'm going to be older than these guys. I'm going to be older than the rooks that we have. And it's really crazy to think about when I was like looking at the age of Vic and the age of Scoot, stuff
Yeah.
like that. Where I'm like, man, these guys are a generation of talent, and I'm older. I'm a year older than these guys. So
Yeah.
it's like it's it's just something personal that I saw earlier this week. It was interesting to think about when it comes to like how young our guys are and how young
Yeah.
I am, but how old I'm gonna be.
Yeah, everybody goes through that phase of, oh gosh, now I'm older than these players, and you know, I'm 25. Oh no, I'm 24. I'm turning 25 this year. I'm older than like our whole nucleus. Devin, Keldon, Jeremy, like all of them. Trey, um, like it is kind of crazy. And when you're like, yeah, 18 years old, even like the football players, right? Like guys will come out of college and they'll be like 21, 20 years old, and you're just like, Jesus, like what it like, or even like when you were in college, you show up as a freshman or sophomore on campus, and you're 18, you're 19 years old, and you see a 6 foot, or like the basketball football players, you see a 6'10", like 18-year-old kid hooping for your school, and you're like, bro, like what are they? Why am I like this small? And this defensive lineman for the football team is 300 pounds as an 18-year-old freshman, and it's like, yeah, I mean everybody goes through that. It's crazy, and then um, you know, eventually you'll be 5, 6 years older than the rookies, and they're changing your franchise, and you think like, oh God, like when I was graduating high school, this guy was like in elementary school. Oh God, like this guy's saving my franchise, and he's a baby. He's a millennial. He's a Gen Z.
Yeah, no, it's something that I thought about it a little bit when it first, like, when we got these rooks from now, just because I know Jeremy is an '03 kid and I'm an '03 kid, and I was like, that's awesome, that's it, it's perfect, it's amazing.
Yeah,
But now I'm gonna start seeing people that are like '04, and I'm like, what? No way, ain't
yeah,
no way, there's no way that there's gonna be people from '04 in the NBA, and it's crazy to think about. But to bring it back to the Spurs, we had a really good discussion just about how Jeremy's been doing, but as a team, I think there's been a little bit left to be desired from the other guys. And there's always something that you can see that you're like, okay, I'm glad that we're seeing this from this person. But um I know, Juan, you were kind of talking to me about it beforehand, and I wanted to bring it up, and that was just that, like, Yak hasn't Yak has been, in some people's eyes, like, living up to his expectations, and other people's eyes not living up to expectations. And that's all being, with this looming shadow of a contract extension that we're waiting to see Jakob get. And earlier this week we saw Miles Turner get a $60 million contract extension, but it was a little different because he renegotiated in order to get like 17 out of that like contract extension to be added on to this year, which, um, to just put it simple, over the next 2 years, Miles Turner will be getting paid 20 million, and he was just getting paid like 18 million. So, you know, do we think that Yak is in that same area? Do we think that he's in that same range where he should be getting paid this 20 million over the next 4 years? And should it be with the Spurs? Like, do we think that how well he's played over the last, like, stretch, like, is it something that we do think that we want to keep Yak on, and is it worth it if we do keep like a Wemby, that we keep this experiment of a Wemby and Yak on the court together kind of thing? I just wanted to hear your thoughts.
yeah. So I I told you about this, like off the podcast, just like talking to ourselves, and then I started thinking about it more. Um, Basically, my whole thoughts were like, I love Jakob as a player, the defensive things he brings, especially back when it was like DeMar, DeJounte, people who needed the ball in their hands. Jakob was an effective player because he doesn't need the ball in his hands. He sets picks, he does everything for you on offense that doesn't require him to post up and that for that to be like effective in his game. Saying that now, I've kind of expected him to kind of have like a bigger role in this type of team, especially like when guys are out, like Devin Vassell's been out. I kind of just expected him to kind of step up, do a little bit more offensively. I don't need him to post up 10 times a game, you know what I mean? But like, I don't know. I'm just like a little disappointed. I told you, like, I watch the games and I don't like look at the box scores, so like, or like during the game to like figure out like, oh, is he having a good game or not? Um, so like I've been fine like with Jakob, like with what he does. I haven't like hated it or been disappointed like in his production or like what he's doing, or I guess not his production because that's what I'm about to go into. Like with the way he has affected the games. And I know we've had like one of the worst defenses of all time, and it doesn't help that like everybody out in front of Yak doesn't really stop their man, and it puts a lot of pressure on Yak to begin with. But when I would look at the box scores and I would see like 5 points, 6 points from Yak and like 5 rebounds, 4 rebounds, I would be so like disappointed or frustrated, like just wanted Yak to at least do 10 and 10, like be a double double machine every night. I don't know who's keeping him from getting all the rebounds or from getting 10 points a game. And so it's just been a little frustrating. And the more I've thought about it, I don't know if I like would personally would want to extend Yak, especially like at that Miles Turner number, 20 mil. I don't even know if he would get that like now. Um, I don't know if I would like. I know there's been the reports about like if the Spurs get Wemby, they would like Yak to be next to Wemby. But what was that? What would that mean for Jeremy? You know what I mean? Like that means Jeremy would be like put to the bench. And would I rather have Jeremy and Wemby out there than Wemby and Yak? Yeah, at this point, I'm kind of getting to that. I don't want to say like I'm tired of Yak, but I guess I'm just content with like if we move on from him, I'm ready to move on from him. I feel like if you can get something out of him, that's better than sticking with him and paying him 17, 18 mil a year and kind of handicapping your salary cap situation like 3 years from now when you're still paying Yak and like now Devin's been paid and you have to pay some of these other young guys and it's I don't know. That's kind of my whole thing. And then another thing I said, like I was thinking about it and like looking at it, I was like looking at his splits like throughout the year. I guess one of the reasons why I was like a little disappointed was because in the month of October to start the year off, it was only a 7 game sample size, but he averaged 14 points and 11.4 rebounds a game. And I thought that was going to be his production all year. And I would have been fine with that. That would have been sweet. 14 and 12, 14 and 11 from Yak. Like those are good numbers. Like I'd pay 15, 16, mil a year for that type of guy. He is what he is. He's a rim defending shot blocker, pick and roll guy. And since then, his numbers have just kind of dwindled down. But then I looked at it. He was averaging 29 minutes a game in October, and he's gone down to 26 minutes in November, 24 in December, and 25 here in January. So his minutes have gone down, and he's averaging 11 points a game and like 9 rebounds, 7 rebounds, like in some of these months. And so I guess his production is the same. It's just we're not playing him. And I wonder if that has anything to do with we might trade him. Like we just are limiting how much he's playing to limit the wear and tear on his body and to see like we might just move on to Yak. So we're kind of protecting that asset and keeping it from going too crazy. Like in the Lakers loss, which was a close loss, we had played him 23 minutes. And the Heroes Half Court Twitter posted a thing saying like we left Zach out there against Anthony Davis in closing minutes, Zach Collins, and it kind of destroyed us. Like they destroyed us. And I like jokingly like tweeted back at the account and said like, oh, we're like, I did like a little tanking gif, like just like we did that because we're tanking. And now I'm trying to think like, why wouldn't we just put Yak back out there to finish? He only played 23 minutes and you left Zach out there to like die against
get
Anthony.
murdered.
Yeah,
Yeah.
against Anthony Davis. And it's like either it's the tanking stuff, like you don't want Yak out there to be productive, or it's like you don't want Yak anything to happen to Yak, especially so close to the trade deadline. Um, and so I don't know. That's a lot of stuff I just said. I was like disappointed in his production, and then the more I looked at it, it just looks like we're just playing him less. Uh, and like I said, I guess I haven't really noticed that from watching the games, because like I said, he's looked fine, which you know adds up. It equals like his production is the same. He's just playing less
Less time.
minutes, and I don't know. I would be okay if we traded for him or moved on. And I guess I'd be okay if we extended him at like 15, 16 mil. But that Miles Turner money, 20, there's been the Woj reports that he's like up there looking for that, like that's why he didn't sign extensions because he is going to go to free agency and get that. So if that's the case, then I think we really should just move on from him before free agency because I don't want to lose him for nothing. But I don't know. That's kind of just that. I'm okay with moving on from Yak. This team is kind of going nowhere anyways, and might as well get something out of him
Yeah.
while we can.
No, and I've always been in that boat of like, well, if we are gonna move Yak, like I need it to be a good package, because I do think I value Yak in a good sense that like if we're a good team, he is only gonna look better. Right now with the pieces that we have around a guy like Yak, it's like he can only do so much with his skill set, there's only so much that Yak can do, especially on the offensive end. And rebounds is one thing. I do agree with you that like I've been trying to all year. I've been trying to figure out where I want to put Yak and how good I think he is. And that is something that's loomed over, which is, well, we're one of the worst rebounding teams in the league, but we do have a guy like Yak, and at the beginning of the year, that man was like leading the league in offensive rebounds, so it was like a thing for me where I was like, how are we one of the worst defensive teams and having one of the best offensive rebounders in the league? Like, what's the deal here? What is going on? And so it is one of those things where for me, I was just like, man, like what, like, is it a Yacht thing where he's just not good enough, or is it a thing that our team's just not good enough, and he really is just a nice complementary piece to a good contending team? And I think that if Yacht gets traded to a contending team this year, we're gonna see that man's production just spike, because he's not gonna have to do much of what he had to do here. All he's gonna have to do is just sit in the paint, block shots, and then let whoever on that offensive end score, and then get offensive rebounds, and we know that he's good at it. So it's like, it's one of those things where once he's on a contending team, it's going to show his value. It's going to show how good of a player he is. And it was the same thing with Derek White last year. We knew that this team wasn't like good enough to be a playoff contender. We were verging on trying to be a contending for a play-in spot, and we trade Derek White, who a lot of people there was a good mix of like, is Derek White really this good, or was the Denver Nuggets series all he had in him? And then he goes to Boston, and again, like, you just see that man's role like get solidified and show how good he is at doing what they ask him to do. So it's just like, it's going to be the same thing when a guy like Yak gets moved, So I think that if we keep it up with him, that he could get that good money from us and still work it out. But at the same time, I'm okay with us moving on from him, because maybe we aren't, maybe we do need another year to find ourselves, to find that step, and get into get into just what our team identity would be like, and maybe that's not enough time for Yak. Maybe that
Yeah.
like year or 2 years that we need to start to find our team's identity just doesn't fit the timeline that Yak has in order for him to get his success. So that's like one of the things that I think I'd be okay if we're gonna trade Yak. It's gonna be to a good situation for him, and we're gonna get our value out of it as well, because I feel like we will be able to get 2 picks, stuff like that Yak will be able to, or 1 pick in a young player, something like that, that'll make it solid, a solid return for us. I feel like we were able to get a really good haul for Derek White. If we got something like that for Yak, I'm happy.
Yeah. What was the haul for Derek White? It was Josh
Josh
Richardson
Richardson,
and
Romeo Langford, and that first round pick.
so three
So
players: Malachi Branham, right? Or was that Blake Wesley? That was Blake Wesley.
it was Blake.
Yeah. So Blake Wesley, Josh Richardson, and Romeo Langford.
Hmm.
And then if we
On
move
top
on,
of a pick swap, sorry, a pick swap for like a couple years down the road, we'll be able to choose to take Boston's pick and you know swap it in that sense.
yeah, you're right. That was a good trade, and it still hurts. I love Derek. He did all the little things, and like you said, he goes to a contender, and he's not asked to do as much, and he just looks so much better. And I love like looking at like Boston Celtics like tweets and stuff like that, and everybody loves Derek White. And now they're the ones defending his game, and like some people say like Derek White doesn't even have it like the stats, and like he's not a stat guy. And I agree. I think the same will happen for Yak. Um, I feel bad because like I was the one who brought up the whole Yakapurto like kind of disappointing me stuff, and then like you dive a little bit deeper, and he's just not even really playing that much. 24 minutes a night is what he's averaging, and I like if he goes to a contender, I think he can be like the Robert Williams of like a contending team, like a make a finals run. Like he can do that role. He's not the high flyer that Robert Williams is, but like those Warrior teams that had Andrew Bogut, you know what I mean? Like I remember watching those teams, and Andrew Bogut was a good player, but he wasn't like dynamic, and he didn't post you up and do all the type of stuff. Like Jakob could do stuff like that. The Celtics teams that had like Tristan Thompson, or not Celtic Cavaliers teams that had like Tristan Thompson at like center. You know what I mean? Like Jakob can do the dirty work for a championship team. Um, I guess we that can lead us into the next topic, because if we do trade Yak, I was always on board with the James Wiseman stuff. I get like a little scared now, a little cold feet with it because of how much people say how bad he is, how terrible that guy is. Um, but what if you get James Wiseman and two first rounders, from the Warriors or something like that? Like, I don't know. Like, it's the same thing, right? It's like three players, one of them is young with a lot of potential. There's a chance he can, you know, boom for you and blossom into what he was supposed to be. But if not, I'm okay with like whatever you said. Just a type of trade package that nets us a young player back, or a couple picks that turn into some young players that maybe we can use to trade up if we don't get a top 2 or 3 pick this year. Something along those lines. Um, I would be okay with Yak's like trade package. Now, if we trade Yak for 2 second rounders, I will throw a fit.
Me too. Me too. I the report earlier this week was talking more on Josh Richardson and Doug McDermott. I think everybody already knows like what the Spurs want for a Jakob Pertl, which is like that two first round picks area, or a young player 1 pick, future swap type stuff. Things in that general area when it comes to Yak, and the other trades were that like the Spurs are okay with trading Josh Richardson for a second round pick, and for me, I would rather like we literally did the Thad Young trade last year. I would love to do the exact same thing that we did last year, where we traded the Detroit Pistons pick and Thad Young to the Raptors for their first round pick, which ended up becoming 20, which was Malachi Branham. And
And
Juan,
the
I know you've
Detroit
kind of
Pistons pick was like what, the first pick in the second round?
one of the top picks. It's gonna be,
Uh,
it's gonna be a top. It was a top 5 pick or something like that in the second round, and we're
yeah,
gonna be in the same boat with our pick.
yeah.
So we trade our second round pick, we trade Josh Richardson, and we get up to a 18 to 25 range with that Josh Richardson pick. And or with that trade, and I'm okay with that. That's it. Like I will 100% be okay with that, because that's like exactly like so this is what I was gonna say. Juan, I know you kind of talked about this a couple times, where it's like you don't want to become the Thunder. You don't want to become the Thunder where you're like, building a lot of draft capital, but then not really having like the space to use it because you just have so many young guys. And eventually it comes to a point where you have to drop an Isaiah Roby in order
Yeah.
to keep the guys that you have, right? And for me, that's like, I agree with that, but you're just moving up in the draft, with that pick, and then at that point, I'm sure we were already going to use that second round pick because of how high it is. You have to assume that we were going to be looking to find somebody that could be on the roster for the next 3 years with a second round pick that high. We were able to do it with a guy like Trey Jones. We were trying to do it with like a Joe Wieskamp or Metu, stuff like that. But like you can find talent. You can find talent, or just like a nice prospect in that second round, right at the very top. Those are literally guys that should have been first rounders, but just barely didn't make the cut. So um, I think that if we can make that trade of trading Josh Richardson and that second round pick up to get somebody of a Malachi standard, it's even better. It's even better because look at how good Malachi has been for us through this year. And you just got to imagine that if we do get another prospect of that caliber, let's say we're finding our backup forward in that 20th range, a backup power forward, somebody that helps alleviate what the bench responsibilities are, you know, then we're just adding to our depth at that point by moving off of Josh Richardson and then starting to give Romeo Langford and Malachi Branham even more playing time because we finally moved off of Josh Richardson in order to find our future piece for next year.
Yeah.
So I've always been on the boat that by this time in the NBA season, that we'd need to move off of Josh Richardson and or Doug McDermott. You know, is the same thing with Doug. I'm more okay with trading for seconds with Doug just because it does give more guys the playing time. And I guess Doug just isn't as valuable as a guy like Josh Richardson, even though they've both been having good seasons. They've both been having really good seasons. But I do think like what Josh Richardson can add to a team might be a little bit more flexible. You know, Doug
Yeah.
McDermott's more pure shooting. Josh Richardson can do a little bit more everywhere else, and then plays good defense. So,
Yeah,
but
I agree with most of that stuff too. I kind of flip flop back and forth on like, just trade everybody you can right now, or keep one veteran. You know what I mean? Like that way, like this team has a veteran presence in the locker room. Um, but I don't know. Like I always like thinking like even like players like Kata Bates, Diop are freaking veterans, but he was drafted the same year Lonnie was drafted, and like he's just a little bit older. So outside of Doug and Josh, who do you really have? You know what I mean? That's going to help stabilize this team from inside the locker room. Are you going to keep bringing Gorgie back on these 10-day contracts? Like I don't know. It's something like that. Uh, that I like flip flop back on. So this time next week when we do this podcast again, if we haven't already made a deal, we'll have way more trade talk. But Doug for a couple second rounders, yeah, I guess you could do that. Because kind of like you said, my philosophy is I don't want to just stockpile a bunch of picks, let alone second rounders that we're gonna cut because we have all these first rounders that we have to sign. You know what I mean? Like I don't need second round picks, and so at that point, I probably would just keep Doug for veteran presence. But I'll let you know next week if I change my mind.
yeah. Well, as we start to wrap up on, like, is there anything from anybody else? Like, we talked about Jeremy, we talked about Yak. I guess shout out to Keldon for having a good night when having another person on the floor, um, scoring and stuff like that. Like, that's the type of stuff that people need to see because, again, like even I was a doubter at some point of just like, well, is Keldon, are we seeing like a regression from him, or is this just what the situation is?
Yeah.
Um, and so shout out to him because he's been doing his thing. He's been doing his
Yeah.
thing all year. So, but is there anybody else that you want to talk about as we start to wrap up the week?
I mean, it's been good to see Blake out there. He's learning. I love when he like against Phoenix, he got called for a foul like almost like right away, and Pop was just like kind of talking to him and like, I mean, we've all been there as like on a playing a game, and the coach is like not like talking to you like, are you dumb, but like, are you serious? Like, like come on now. And Blake is just like, he's learning out there, and it's good because Blake's got to play a little bit of catch up to the level that Malachi and Jeremy have already been like kind of thrown into all this. But yeah, Blake's been awesome. I love what Romeo Langford adds. I love his aggressiveness, and he throws up little wonky floaters in the paint. They always look funky, and sometimes they're just like pure, and I love that. Romeo's a good player. I really like his game. I love defense, and that's why like I've always loved those type of players who try to get into you, try to disrupt you, and then like they're physical. And Romeo's game kind of reflects that in the offensive side as well. I love when he takes a guy like baseline and like just throws his shoulder and just goes right up for the layup like real easy. And you could see the talent in him. Like why he was, I always forget. Was he a lot? He was a lottery pick, right? Or
Just
was he
outsider, or he was 14 or 15,
right? So
14 or
like,
15. It's right in the middle.
yeah, you can see the talent. It's there, and you can tell like the the injuries like they kind of derailed his. He's just like kind of finally getting his footing, and I love like to see that. And I'm not as low on Zach Collins that Chris is. I've heard the podcast and I've been on here a couple times. I know he's not the greatest defensively, even though like some of his advanced metrics, like the numbers, they do support him. He does play solid defense, which is a little bit surprising. Which that was like a week or two ago when I looked at those. So it might have changed. He might have got torn up the last 2 weeks. But like, yeah, like he's not going to stop Anthony Davis. That's not his fault. He's a power forward. He's not supposed to be stopping these big old bruisers in the paint. They were mentioning that last night against even like a Bismack Biombo. Like they're just more physical than Zach Collins. But that's because those guys are centers, and Zach is a four. So I guess like I understand Chris is like old school and he gets frustrated with, well, you're throwing like a four out there against a five to begin with. But I feel like Zach has provided more than enough offensively, and I tend to agree with the broadcast crew where it's like his development is there. He's finally healthy, and Sean Elliott brought it up like he came back last March. Like it's about to be a year since he's finally come back and played a whole year's worth this coming March, and you can see the development there, and he provides a little bit of like a stability as far as it comes to scoring off the bench. And I know me and you have talked about that a little bit off the podcast, where it's like that's kind of needed to kind of stabilize the bench unit, kind of work your offense through the post, and you can trust Zach because last year I hated it when we dumped the ball down to Zach in the post and it was just always a miss or a bad shot. But like now you can see his game and those little hook shots work and his little post moves are like he's spinning towards the basket. Like it's all working and he's not afraid to pass the ball to a cutting, Jeremy or Malachi or somebody like that. And so I like what Zach brings to the team. Um, you kind of get scared for players like him, his type of game. Like, are they gonna find homes like on good contending teams? Like I don't know, like a backup big who needs to post up. Like, are you gonna be on a
Yeah.
Warriors team or like you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
but
exactly. That's always been my take with Zach Collins is like, I don't necessarily mind seeing him all the time, but like, man, like it gets frustrating because you know that if he's not going to make those shots, it's almost like he can't be on the floor, because even if like I guess like the advanced metrics say that he's been good defensively, like in a sense my eye test, right, just tells me I'm like, well, he's just like, we're just letting anybody do anything they want in the paint whenever he's on the floor.
yeah,
So, like it's stuff like that when for me it's like, all right, well, if he's not gonna make those post hooks or anything like that in the when we're giving him those touches, I don't really want to see him on the floor. And that was kind of like the same way that it was when it was Bryn, like if Bryn's not gonna hit those threes, don't let that man touch the floor. Get somebody else out there because he is too much of a defensive liability. While Zach isn't nearly to that level of a liability that Bryn was for us, like that's just like where my mindset goes to of like, well, we gotta figure something out. We gotta figure something else out of like what can we do to fill in that role. But I agree with you. I agree with you that Zach's been playing good, better than what I thought he was going to be this year.
yeah.
Um,
I don't. Yeah, I didn't want to like to make like a whole segment out of it, but
yeah,
before the Phoenix game last night where he only had 3 points and the Clippers game 7 points, he had that stretch. So seven. It was 17 against Portland, 16 against 11 against. Wait, I'm reading this wrong. 17 against the Clippers, 11 against Portland, and then 16 against the Lakers. And like he's had 18-point games, 16. He's averaging 9 points a game, 6 rebounds a game off the bench, and he's shooting 35% from three. Like,
that's
yeah,
not
like
bad.
his
It's not bad.
production, like when he produces, it's good. But like last night against Phoenix, when he has 2 points, or whatever it was, like yeah, it can be a little rough. It can get a little ugly. And I agree with that. He is what he is. He's a backup big right now. He's young. He was a lottery talent, and you can see that. It's the same thing, like Romeo Langford. Um, they're lottery talents for a reason. Just injuries didn't work out. That doesn't mean they're going to be superstars or lead your team just because they're a lottery, but they're effective rotation guys. In the right spot. And yeah, I mean, hope maybe like if something changes. I don't know if you remember those like championship runs we had from 2012 to 2014, 2015. Like when the matchup called for it, we played a certain guy, and this team was so deep, or that team was so deep that you could like you know play Boris Dio at the 4 and then Timmy at the 5 in certain matchups. But then like when you ran across a team that had two bigs like the Mavs and it was Dirk and like Tyson Chandler or somebody like that, you played Tiago Splitter and Timmy together to get a little bit more size, a little bit more beefier. And it was the same thing off the bench. Like certain players wouldn't play certain series because you just needed a little bit more size, or you needed to kind of trim down a little bit and need a little bit more wings. And that's kind of how I envision a Zach Collins, where like in the right situation, he could be like your backup 4 and like kind of bully you. And in another situation, he might be able to give you those minutes at the 5, or you might not play him at all. You know, like if the other team is just way too small and you can't like afford to post up and miss 5 post ups a game. You know what I mean? Like, but I mean, I like what Zach brings. It's not his fault defensively. Some of the stuff Chris says, like the attitude wise, or like the engagement he has on defense. I don't know if I quite agree with like that stuff, or if I see that. But we keep Zach the rest of the year, and we move on from Yak. We might see a whole lot more of him, in the starting lineup. So um, that's just something to look forward to.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. I think you hit up on everything when it comes to just wrapping up today, because yeah, I mean, I've been happy seeing Romeo play. It's been exciting to see Blake start up, um, and I think I'm in a solid little middle ground between you and Chris on my feelings towards Zach Collins. But yeah, well, with that being said, guys, we do come to you every Sunday at the 10 a.m.s. We go live to Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, all of which that you can follow, that you can see us live. And if you can't watch us live during the 10 a.m.s, then you can see the VODs on all three platforms shortly thereafter. Make sure that y'all do follow us on Twitter at Heroes Half Court, where we do talk about the Spurs on the near daily. We'd love to have that Spurs engagement, so don't be afraid to reach out and talk to us about some Spurs basketball on Twitter. But yeah, with that being said, we're gonna get ready to go watch some NFL football. Playoffs are finishing up here. My Cowboys disappointed me. I was really sad. I think I've become full on Dak's not that guy. At least before he's not that guy. I think that game. I think that game showed me that we had the tools. We could have won that game. Dak didn't win that game. So
He's never been this turnover prone in his career. It just was this year, and as a DAC defender, not even like a crazy defender. It's just like some of the hate is outrageous.
I agree.
Wouldn't 100% say 100% say I'm a Dak believer in that he's Patrick Mahomes and he'll take you to the Super Bowl no matter what. But like, who was he throwing to outside of CeeDee Lamb? And we've seen how effective Dak can be when the offense, like, people think that's such a negative thing that it's like, oh, like he has to have the perfect team around him. Well, yeah, you have to have the perfect team to win a Super Bowl, and that's what we need. So we need
Yeah.
to regroup, get some, retool, and figure this out. We're getting Dan Quinn back, Micah Parsons another year. I don't know.
I think we should trade a first round pick for Amari Cooper. What do you think?
No.
I'm still salty. I think
Yeah,
having
me
an
too.
Amari Cooper would have been perfect for that 49ers game, but
Yeah,
can't do anything about it.
CeeDee Lamb turned into a number one wide receiver. I don't know if Mari Cooper would have been able to take the back seat to that, or if he would have pouted on the sideline and disappeared like he did in some games. So,
I don't know. I doubt Amari's that kind of a guy.
oh,
It doesn't
he
it
just pouted
doesn't
for other reasons.
is I don't know, man. I don't think he would have been upset if we would have said we're gonna give more touches to CD Lamb. Like, I don't know. Either way, Cowboys are out. We're gonna be watching to see who's going to the Super Bowl. I'm full on Team Pat now because my Texas Tech allegiance gives me the chance to say that Pat's my guy. So
Yeah,
you know
I need whoever out of the AFC to win the Super Bowl. I can't have the Eagles win a Super Bowl, and I can't have the Niners win. So
yeah.
if it's Patty Mahomes, then I'll take it because I don't mind Pat Mahomes. I mean, he's the greatest quarterback of all time already. So it's like there's nothing really like you can argue, or it doesn't hurt anybody's legacies. It doesn't make it harder for the Cowboys, like narrative wise, because
Yeah, he's already
Pat.
generational. He's
But if
legendary.
but if it's Joe Cool, if it's Joe Burr,
Joe. Brr.
I don't know. I like Joe Burrow a lot, so I wouldn't mind if he wins. It'll make it like Cowboys fans heck because the Cincinnati Bengals won a Super Bowl before the Dallas Cowboys. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
we'll never live that down, but what can you do as long as it's not the NFC?
As long as it's not the NFC. I'm a huge fan of Jamar Chase ever since I drafted him in fantasy in his rookie year. I was a huge fan.
Yeah.
But alrighty then, y'all. I hope everybody has a wonderful Sunday. Stay safe out there. Be happy. Have a good day. And with that being said, we are out. Peace.